We have a crisp apple pie. Let me go ahead and bring this over. We have an apple pie, and we have kind of this raspberry pie. And I thought since we have a pie as a logo, let's stick with the pie theme. And what we could do, if we know we already have a plan here, let's go ahead and block out where we want our photos to be divided. And we can get our container rectangle frame tool so we know to bring in the photos that way. Let's do it right here about the halfway point. Toggle on W so we can see our container frame. Got our two frames just like that. We can always make this a different color so we can see what's going on. So let's drag in our photos. We do a raspberry photo, and don't worry about the fitting. I guess we can go ahead and do fitting. Fitting, fill frame proportionately. We'll worry about all that later. And let's do our apple pie on the top. Fitting, fit frame proportionally. So let's send these backwards in the layering system. We go to our layers panel and just bring that below the logo. And let's toggle off our W. So let's finesse this and have the two pies meet together to form one pie, but two halves. So what we want to do is we click once, we can move the whole frame, but we want to be able to crop the photo in the frame. So we're going to double click and see now it turned to red or orange, whatever you want to call it. And now we can shift this around. So let's zoom out, click twice on our photo, and let's go ahead and do the Command Shift so we can scale dimensionally. And let's see if we can't position this photo better. Go ahead and turn this around. A quick way to turn this around is I can get the corner tool. I can hold down the shift button and it will rotate on the perfect 45-degree angle. So I can go ahead and do a perfect turning around. Let's make it a little bit smaller. So that's the top half, and let's do the same thing with this one. Let's see if we can't get the corners to match. Make sure we're double clicking here. So we need something to kind of unify this a little bit. So we have this logo, we have these two very strong, vivid photos. What we need is something to bring everything together because there's kind of something missing down here. So what I thought we would do is bring in a band because we need to have the author name as well, and we need to go ahead and integrate that. So I thought about doing some kind of bar to unify everything together, and making that bar, I'm just getting a rectangle tool and getting the eyedropper tool to sample one of these colors and go ahead and send that backwards in the layering system. So just kind of a bar to kind of bring everything together. I'm just doing some slight adjustments to the photos to make sure they line up really good. So let's go ahead and save our colors swatches. So we have our swatches here. We can right click this swatch, add to swatch. Perfect. And let's go ahead and sample our navy blue color. And let's right click and add to swatches. So if I ever wanted to change any of these colors, I go to my swatches, drag that color panel out. I'd like to keep my color panel within my swatch panel. So let's keep those together so I can toggle between the two. So now I can save these as gold book, our gold cookbook, and save that as navy cookbook. And you can create folders, so I can say cookbook, colors, and we can drag in our two colors so we can go ahead and recall those colors at any time we want, and we have them in a nice folder. Let's make it a navy blue. The reason I don't want to make it gold is I feel like gold draws way too much attention to the bar, and we don't want that. We want to bring a little less attention, so we're going to make it navy color, but that doesn't mean we can't incorporate a little bit of the gold by adding a stroke. So I'm going to click over here to stroke and make it gold. And let's go to our stroke panel and make that a little bit bigger. Just kind of creating a little ribbon, if you want to call it a ribbon. So let's go ahead and add our author name. So let's get a text box. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a balance. So we have this perfect left and right thing. We have this perfect top and bottom with the photo and the center logo to tie it all together. So what I want to do is be able to break this up and keep this whole 50-50 split theme we have going on. So we have recipes by and Lisa Hunt. So let me go ahead and put, I think a colon would probably be required right there. So recipes by, and if we just need to make anything capital, we can do all that. So let's go over to character and edit this a little bit. So let's go to our text box. Let's go to properties. Let's finesse this a little bit. Let's pick a nice typeface for this. There's one that I've already found. It's called Pacifico, and it's for free on Google Fonts, so anybody can go download it at Google Fonts. Pacifico, I just thought this had a fun character to it. It's a little bit more relaxed and comfortable and cozy, which is exactly what a dessert cookbook would be. And it could be that a lowercase might even be more soft as well. So we'll just have to finesse that typography a little bit later. Let's also make it, we can make it gold. We can go to our swatches, make it our gold cookbook color, and make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it perfect so that when we apply it to this side, it'll already be ready. And here's one thing we need to think about. So this is all about drawing the viewer's eye, which is what we've been talking about this whole front cover, is where do we want it to go to? If we make this gold, this type gold, it kind of blends in with everything. It kind of makes it all the same. What if I were to break this up a little bit and just do white? It kind of breaks it up a little bit, and I think it kind of works in a way. So let's apply the same thing. We can select this. We could do the eyedropper tool and just easily make that the same color. Or we can go to our character styles and go ahead and highlight our text and create a new character style and call this Pacifico headline, front cover. So if we ever wanted to recall that same typeface presentation, we have our character styles already had. So if we had this back to default, we could just highlight this and go back down to Pacifico headline, and boom, it's instantly, all of our options are saved. So what I'm realizing is I want to make sure I have this background extended because it looks like this is the end of the photo. Let me see if I can't rotate this photo a little bit. So I'm going to double click the photo so I get the orange, and I'm going to hold down Shift. And when I hold down Shift and do the corner, it's going to do these perfect 45-degree clicks. 1, 2, and I want to get that spoon somehow shown. So let's see what would be the best position for that. Maybe right here, kind of a downward shift. And we can always double click this and shift it over just a little bit so we can get the right position. Just like that. So you'll run into this. This is a very common problem in graphic design, is you'll have this perfect photo, just like this, but the background does not extend out as much as you'd like. So you'd need to almost clone or replicate the background a little further to get that background to extend out for you so you can crop it properly. So that's going to be an easy fix. We're going to select this bottom photo. We're going to right click and we're going to edit this in Photoshop. So edit with Photoshop, and we're just going to extend that background out. So we're just going to go to Image, Canvas size, we're just going to expand it all the way around. So we're going to add maybe 5,000 to the width, just adding 1,000 pixels around, and going to go ahead and click. It's going to expand it out, and so it'll give us an opportunity to clone. So let's go back into InDesign and figure out exactly where we need it. So it's going to be on this side that we need to expand the background. So so around this side, right down here. This is where we need to expand it. So as we learned in Photoshop lessons, there's some really neat tools that we can use, the content aware fill tools. So I'm just going to go ahead. I want to replace this, and I'm going to go up to my content aware. Let's see if I can't do both of these at the same time. Extend our background out. So just have all of that selected, and let's do our content aware tools. Edit, content aware fill. So let's go ahead and do this. And let's take our sample. So let's say, oh, that's perfect right there. Really good already. So let's go ahead and click OK. It's going to add all that extra background, and we can clean it up with the clone tool. So you notice how it repeats the same texture over and over, and it kind of looks like it was, copy and paste. It doesn't look realistic. So let's clean it up and make it look more natural using the clone tool. And if you didn't have the content aware fill tools because you have a really old version of Photoshop, then you would just use the clone tool. So I have our layer selected, which this is the layer here. Let's go ahead and merge these two layers together. So I have these layers. I'm going to do Command E, or you can right click and merge it. Right click and then merge layers. So now I'm going to click on Option and take a sample, maybe right here, and just kind of cover up a little bit of this repeat texture, just to clean it up a little, make it look more realistic. Perfect. So now we're going to save. And let's save to desktop, and we're going to save it as a JPEG and bring it back in as a JPEG. Let's go to InDesign. Let's go to our links. Let's check out our links here. Here's our links, and it's going to be right here. And we're going to relink this with the new one. We're just going to have a new one right here. So just relinking this. It should automatically populate, but it doesn't look like it's doing the cropping for us, so we might need to manually go in. Since it's a little bit bigger than the original one, we have to kind of resize it. That's just how it is sometimes. So I know that was a lot of little steps there, but I think when you're this far along with your knowledge, you could start to learn how to integrate the different softwares. How do you export and bring files in and out? And that's one way to do it. So voila, we have this instant cloned background. We just had to bring that into Photoshop. You can't really do that in InDesign, but that's what it's for. So a couple other tweaks we want to do. I'm thinking this stroke is still too strong. It's taking away from the stroke of the center. And this is where, as a designer, you will go back and forth. You'll go, oh, let's do this. And then you'll realize, oh, that's way too strong. That's the experimental process of being a designer. So let's remove the stroke. And let's do none for that and make it a little bit thicker. Just a little bit thicker. And let's change our type. Let's do a center alignment of these two objects. So let's go into our paragraph. We're just doing a center alignment. We're going to do the same thing with her name. And let's see if a lowercase looks better for her. And let's make sure both of those are aligned. So we're just going to go to our Align panel and align them. So what's missing here? So let's zoom out. A couple of tweaks we can do. I'd love to get a more rich blue. We've already established this blue with the logo, but now that we're seeing it with these rich colors of the photography, I'd love to have a little bit more deeper, or add a little bit more shade to our blue. So we can easily do that manually here. We can go to our swatch that we have established, navy blue, double click this, and we're just going to add a little bit more black. And so now with our logo, we brought this in as an EPS. And I think we might be able to take the direct selection tool, double click the one element. So it looks like we might need to bring this in again, which is no big deal. We can always double click this swatch, get a sample of its hex code color, and paste it into, I'm in Adobe Illustrator, just making that the deep blue. And then we can save it as an EPS. And if we're saving it in the same format that we dragged into InDesign, it'll automatically update for us. So we're going to double click, or we can right click and update link. And voila, we have our changes. So I just thought that had a more rich appearance. So one thing when you zoom out, it's great to zoom out on your design. I think one thing that's missing is this, now that we took away the stroke, we still need some kind of line to kind of bring the eye toward these two elements, but we didn't need something so strong as the stroke. So let's create a little line here. So we're going to get our line tool, click, and then hold down shift to create a perfect straight line. Of course, it's nice to go ahead and add your stroke. So let's add, we're in our swatches. Let's go ahead and do gold stroke, and we're going to click, hold down shift, and do a straight stroke. So we can go over to our stroke options, and there's lots of different options. Let's try a wavy line because that's nice and soft and goes with our softer feeling for the logo. See how we have these soft lines in the logo? Let's do wavy. Let's make it a little bit bigger stroke. Just making some small tweaks. Hold down Option and drag. We're just going to duplicate that right over here on this side. And let's go ahead and change and collapse the spacing here between the lines. So I'm just going to go over to my character panel and reduce that just a little, just kind of pulling it in so we don't have too much of a wide gap or spacing between those. And we might need to widen it just a little bit here because that's the way the Y dips down. So just very small tweaks and getting everything nice aligned. Of course, you can use your rulers and guides if you want to bring in your guides. If you're someone who wants to be perfectly precise, you toggle on that W and go for it. Great, I think we just need a few more things and we'll be really close to finishing our cookbook cover at least. Let's add a little bit of drop shadow so we can add a layered element to the logo on top of the ribbon. So I'm going to select our EPS logo file that we brought in. I'm going to right click it go down to effects, and we're just going to add a little bit of drop shadow. This works like any other Adobe program. We're going to reduce the distance a little bit, or maybe, let's go ahead and increase the distance, and let's reduce the opacity so it's not so strong. You got to be careful not to make your drop shadows too strong, because it can start to look cheap and dated if you make it too strong in the wrong place, especially when it's a faded or a feathered drop shadow. We can increase the size. Just go ahead, just changing some of these to make it what I think would look really good. So once again, reducing that opacity. Maybe that was a little bit too strong. So it just gives it a little bit of a layered look. So if you zoom in here, you got that nice layer. It doesn't look cheap. And we could apply the same thing to this bar. And with the bar, I might even want to reduce the opacity quite a bit. Just want a little bit of drop shadow and maybe more distance. So I think we've made a lot of progress. I feel like we're at a stopping point for the front cover. And if we go to pages, we can see our front cover right there. We're going to be doing a couple of spreads. So let's zoom out here, and we're going to do a couple of dessert spreads. But first, let's do kind of a welcome spread. So as we said before, this is going to be the inside of the front cover. So we're just going to have a simple photo there. And then on the right, we're going to have a welcome to the cookbook message, where it's going to be a letter from our author, Lisa Hunt, which is a made-up name, by the way. This is not a real cookbook. We're going to put a little letter from the author, and then we're going to do a couple of spreads. We're going to use master pages to be able to complete the rest of the spreads very quickly. So let's do our welcome spread next.